Hey everybody, Trace again. Welcome back to TestTube Plus. This is part 2 of 5 on our series about terrorism. And today, we're going to talk about why people join groups like ISIS. We're going to talk mostly, when it comes to terrorism, about foreign terrorist groups, especially ISIS, because it's the biggest one around right now. But we will mention other groups, just so you know. So when it comes to ISIS, how can they recruit so well? A U.S. State Department spokeswoman, Jen Psaki, told CNN, it's something we need to do a lot more work on. We're seeing 90,000, I think, tweets a day that we're combating. That's a lot. That's a huge amount of tweets. And what ISIS is doing is they're utilizing these modern communication tools, which is crazy. I think we can all agree that the Islamic State's ideology is basically at odds with what the West is holding dear, so why are so many Westerners attracted to their cause? How are they snatching up all of these youth? Why are people being caught trying to get to ISIS? It's mainly their tactics. They're super advanced. I mean, let's look at another group, Al-Qaeda, the poster child of terrorism only 10 years ago. Al-Qaeda's recruitment propaganda back in the early 2000s, the late 90s, it was basically men with long beards ranting in Arabic in front of a black flag or something with grainy footage from a camcorder and maybe a truck driving toward Americans and blowing up. Things that you would expect. And it's almost a cliche now, right? ISIS is more strategic. They embrace modern technology. Their YouTube videos are as good a quality as some of the most prominent Western media estates. Things like the New York Times and the Guardian look at their videos and see equal levels of production being put in to ISIS propaganda. I went to a YouTube summit in Los Angeles not long ago about combating extremism on YouTube. And we talked with people from the State Department, from YouTube, from all over the U.S., prominent Muslims, researchers, YouTube creators, and we were all there to try and break down and analyze what ISIS is doing, how propaganda works online, and try and figure out ways to combat it. It was an amazing summit, but the things we learned about ISIS's propaganda were insane. ISIS has this powerful and incredibly successful propaganda machine. They distribute messages daily across many different platforms, Twitter and YouTube and a variety of other places. They have $2 billion to use for their propaganda. Their propaganda obviously contains violent imagery. Some of our shows here on TestTube have showed up in some of ISIS's videos because we talk about them over on TestTube News. YouTube tries to stay on top of it, but there's really no way to police what's going on in their videos. There are so many hours of video, many, I don't know the current statistic, but it's dozens of hours uploaded every minute to YouTube, and they rely on flagging to find these needles in their haystacks. So if no one flags the video, there's no way to know what the video is of. The terrorist group actually has a 24-hour online operation, and their effectiveness is baffling. According to Matthew Olson, director of the National Counterterrorism Center, ISIS now operates the most sophisticated propaganda machine of any terrorist organization. Just to put it a little bit in perspective, when we were at that YouTube summit combating extremism, they talked about one of the videos that they created, which showed what daily life was like for people living in the so-called Islamic State. And the lens that they were using on the camera that they were shooting with was $10,000. Just the lens. It was a super nice lens. It was a lens that people would use in real production, what you might think of as real productions, right? They were using that. And that might seem kind of inside baseball, but think about it this way. A $10,000 lens means that it's attached to a very expensive camera too, and someone's taking the time to buy that equipment and put it to use. They're taking time to make these good. And they're doing it because their organization is targeting teens, Muslim teens or not. According to analyses, the teens are usually lonely, they're not used to someone or many someones showing them so much attention. And doing so online works just as well as it would in real life, doting on someone. They explain how great it is to join the Islamic State and live a more faithful life. They're being fed lies about this romanticized and glamorous world that resembles nothing of the actual misery inflicted by ISIS. They bought individuals. They were trying to recruit gifts like chocolate and other things that would, entice them to join ISIS. They even gave them money and loans to help come to the Islamic State, as they called it. According to Nasser Wadadi, a Middle East expert who is preparing a research paper on combating extremist propaganda, quote, all of us have a natural firewall in our brain that keeps us from bad ideas. ISIS looks for weaknesses in the wall and then they attack. According to FBI reports, ISIS considerably preys on Western youth who are disillusioned and feel like they have no sense of belonging or purpose. It sounds familiar because we've had this problem in the United States domestically for a long time. And I'm not saying that gangs are terrorists, but it's a similar idea. People join because they feel disillusioned. They feel like they don't belong, and a gang gives them a way to feel a sense of belonging. ISIS is preying on that same feeling. It's a human feeling. We want to belong to something. And gangs give their recruits a sense of belonging in a family, and ISIS is trying to do that from afar using social media. They use the same tactics to offer purpose and meaning. Richard Barrett of the Sufan Group wrote a report called Foreign Fighters in Syria, and in it they said, the general picture provided by foreign fighters of their lives in Syria suggests camaraderie, good morale, and purposeful activity, all mixed with a sense of understated heroism, designed to attract their friends as well as to boost their own self-esteem. This is like the social media effect. People who are new parents, they have baby photos posted on their Instagram. They're all smiling, happy babies, right? But everyone who's ever had a baby knows that it's not smiling all the time. Sometimes it's peeing on you. Sometimes it's keeping you up at night. You always have to be feeding it. It's like, it's not always easy. Babies are great. But they're only going to post the things that make you realize how great the baby is. It's the same with any of these other things. These are social media strategies taught at universities to people who are studying digital media. ISIS also appeals to a sense of religious obligation, obviously. Muslim leaders around the world have condemned ISIS for acting in the name of Islam. They shouldn't be doing that. They're not doing that. They're able to appeal to some with the idea that they need to join to help fight for their people, for Muslims who are oppressed. Probably one of the craziest recruitment tactics ISIS has tried is female-targeted recruitment. If the Islamic State is so anti-women's rights, how is it that they can get women to join their cause? Well, the terror group launched an online propaganda campaign around September of 2014 called Al-Zawra, which used various social media platforms and videos almost as like a beginner guide to jihad. Aside from cooking and sewing to support jihad, the campaign aimed to teach sisters software design and editing, and the physical side, whatever that could be, use your imagination, and also the use of weapons, obviously, to support jihad. Whether or not the recruitment tactics work isn't necessarily the question. Obviously, for some, they do. For many, many, many more than the few who they do work for, they don't work at all. But in the end, the important thing is to ask, what is it that terrorists want, right? What do they want? What's the goal here? And we're going to talk about that tomorrow on TestTube Plus, so make sure you subscribe and tune in tomorrow as well. If you didn't see yesterday's episode about where terrorism comes from and where it originated, make sure you check that one out. And also, check out last week's episode about alcohol, like all about it. It was really cool. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on TestTube Plus.